In our world of upgrades and updates, we have become a culture used to the next best thing. When something becomes old, it's no longer fit for purpose, and there's always something newer, trendier, and better to get. When we think of Christianity and its place in our postmodern world, we may also conclude that the religion started by a first century man from Nazareth no longer resonates with our times. A brief look at church attendance in the UK gives this idea some credibility. According to Scripture Union, 95% of 18-year-olds and under do not attend church in the UK. This statistic doesn't bode well for the future of the church. It suggests that Christianity does not appeal to Gen Z, and so perhaps it has indeed become obsolete. However, assuming that newer is better, that our increasingly secular postmodern world is the beacon of progress as we march forward to time's beating drum, is a little short-sighted for a few reasons. Firstly, the popularity of any movement or religion, not just Christianity, does not tell us whether it's true or not. The number of people following an idea does not mean that the idea itself is true. Secondly, just because something is old, it doesn't mean that it's worthless. Any antiques auction will show us that many things actually increase in value over time. And thirdly, in assuming that Christianity is obsolete because it began over 2,000 years ago, we can be guilty of something which former atheist turned Christian C.S. Lewis terms chronological snobbery. This is the uncritical acceptance of the intellectual climate of our own age, and the assumption that whatever has gone out of date is on that count discredited. It's quite easy for us to think that this moment in time, our age, is the best there can be. But Lewis encourages us to critically question older ideas before we quickly discard of them. So what kinds of questions can we ask about Christianity to determine whether or not it's obsolete? In many conversations I have with millennials like me or Gen Z who object to Christianity, I'm often struck by how their concerns center around questions of justice and a genuine desire not to cause harm to others. It's fair to say that we live in a justice-conscious age. But what does Christianity have to offer or say about matters of justice? Now, this is where I get excited, because Christianity not only welcomes our moral outrage when we see injustice, but more importantly, it gives us a solid foundation on which to pursue justice. Amy Orr Ewing makes this point clearer in her book, Where is God in All the Suffering? She writes, outrage in the face of injustice, death, disease, or violence makes sense to us as human beings because we instinctively sense that this is not the way things are meant to be. But then she goes on to ask, what is the foundation of human outrage at evil and suffering if life does not have a transcendent source and we are nothing more than a collection of atoms that has learned how to think? Although times have changed and we are advancing in science and technology each day, Christianity posits a timeless, eternal, uncreated, and unchanging God, a God who has established the ancient but hugely significant and far from obsolete Christian idea called the imago Dei, or the image of God. This simply means that each one of us has inestimable worth because we are made in God's image. We reflect something of his nature, his capacity for good, his desire for relationship, and his ability to reason. And we have inherent dignity, which no newfangled idea about what it means to be human can ever take away. But if there is no God, and we are, as Amy puts it, nothing more than a collection of atoms that has learned how to think, our postmodern, largely atheist Western culture struggles to properly ground our anger, our justice-conscious age, or our intuitive desire for human flourishing. As C.S. Lewis suggested, when we start to question and evaluate what Christianity has to offer, we may well begin to find that far from being obsolete, it provides more satisfying responses to some of the oldest questions which have plagued human existence.